Uh, so today, um, the new Clash Royale balance changes for 123 or January 23rd just came out, and I am making this video to show you guys my impressions of it. I th- I didn't watch any of the videos yet. I haven't watched OJ. I haven't watched CWA. I haven't watched like any of these people who like always cover these balance changes. So these are like I guess for the most part, I just saw like I got snapshots of what these changes were. Um, but I just wanted to go make a quick video on this. I'm gonna keep a notepad here because I want to write down my thoughts as I go along, see what is missing, what could be changed, why they're doing it, and uh, what maybe the meta will look like eventually. So, I mean, let's just get into this. I've been really looking forward to these balance changes. I feel like the meta's gotten pretty stale. Like we know exactly what's good right now, and um, I want to see a little bit of something different. The way we approach card balance in Clash Royale is a combination of playtesting and looking at the stats, in particular card use rates and win rates. I still hate that sentence. Win rates is it's kind of iffy because there's so many different win rates across the three different modes of Clash: tournament mode, which they probably honestly don't even look at, grand challenges and ladder, which all have different win rates or cards for the most part. And then card use rates always just kills me inside because I swear to God, if they make another buff to Wizard Bomber or Giant Skeleton or something dumb like that, like they're wasting all of their time. But you can expect monthly balance changes to keep gameplay fine tuned and as fun as possible. In this round of balance changes, we're taking a look at the now infamous Elite Barbarians, toning down some of the highest value defensive options and more. Elite Barbarians hit points -4, damage -4, hit speed to 1.5 seconds from 1.4. So right off the bat, I see that the E Barbs, what they do keep is their speed. So uh, if they're like keeping their speed, then SC or Supercell like likes them as a way to blitz people. Um, Still an aggressive option. Well, aggressive play. E-barbs are still an aggressive play. What they did do to them is that they hit. I mean, they're not gonna have too much health. I'm not sure what the interactions there kind of change. Probably like what I do get Supercell is that they really do fine tune like the stats themselves. I'm sure. I'm sure they can still like one shot archers. They can still kill off RGs, kill off giants. Probably like a lot less because their hit speed. When you nerf damage and hit speed, that's like you're hitting both of their defensive capabilities like a lot. So their the identity of the E barbs now is probably going to be that they are well fast. They retain their speed and they have relatively strong damage, but not toward like as a end all be all defensive option like they are nowadays. So while these three changes are relatively small on their own, the combined effect should be noticeable and make Elite Barbarians more manageable. I do agree. These are good nerfs. We don't want to make them weak, just a bit less powerful. Absolutely agree. Um, they could have taken it the other way around and had instead nerfed their speed, but then it becomes an entirely different card. Or no, like I mean, if we think about it, like let's say that they nerf the speed and they still nerf the hit points, they keep their damage, they keep their hit speed. Probably means that they're still used defensively and probably still great counterattack card. But instead now they're more for the offensive players. Let's keep going down. Oh, this one's big. What? Why did they another nerf to Zap? How many nerfs has it been to Zap? Do they nerf Log too? Let's see. Zap has been one of the most used cards in the game for a long time. For a big reason. For a big reason. Um, this change will stop it from one-shotting equally leveled goblins, which includes Goblin Barrel Goblin. Is that the only interaction? If it's -6%? So damage -6 and cannot zap goblins anymore. So like goblins left the meta with the rise of log, and they have never really been in a good place with zap everywhere either. Goblins in general, like the goblin card, spear goblins, they all have trouble with zap. I mean, spear goblins wouldn't have trouble. I'm pretty sure spear goblins would still die, but goblins never found a place because they never got value. While zap always got value and it was consistent. Should make other spells such as arrows interesting alternatives. Uh, Arrows is an interesting alternative. So the reason why arrows is not good right now, like if we think about it, so the biggest spells, like let's say the biggest utility spells in the game. Um, if we ask people what are the biggest utility spells in the game, they would say zap and log. I don't really count fireball or poison as a utility spell because you don't really throw them out in response just to like cheap pushes or whatever. Like, oh, I guess cheap pushes and expensive pushes. Uh, I don't know how do I put it. It's just like you usually like it's easy to throw out zaps or logs for these cheap small pushes or whatever, but it's a lot harder to throw out things like fireball or poison willy nilly because you need these cards. And if you do throw it out, you do have the chance of losing as compared to just zapping something. You probably don't lose. So zap is so like yeah. Let's get back to the point. So zap and log, they're two, right? They're two elixir and can get you like a lot of value. Arrows is 3, and it also has a chance to get you a lot of value. But the difference between, I mean, there's still a difference between like zap and log. Zap is instantaneous. Log is not. Zap can hit air. Zap can hit ground. Log can hit ground but get more value out of the ground pushes. Cannot hit air. Arrows can hit ground and air, but has a travel time and is one of more elixir, right? I think probably like that kind of breaks the card a little bit. But now that Zap cannot kill equal level goblins, honestly, I don't. It, the other thing arrows is good for is like you would think arrows is great for like stuff like minion horde. Um, Honestly, like I would see more arrows being run if like you see a lot of lava hounds, but I have a feeling with zap being out of the meta that you're going to be seeing the rise of things like Inferno Tower 2. Balloon I think is going to be leaving the meta very soon with how like these with what I'm seeing with these balance changes here. So this zap interaction is actually so big. Uh Goblin Barrel is really big right now in mere furnace decks. So it almost feels like log has to be almost auto include at this point if you want to keep your deck at a low level. So like I mean if people took log, are people going to be taking log and arrows? Probably not. Because that's not enough damage to finish off games and it's not exactly reliable. We've already been seeing a ton of log and fireball, log poison in decks, and they've been getting away without zap. So we know that zap isn't really needed. Uh, hmm. I I like. I mean, they. I like how they want to make arrows like a viable, interesting alternative. But I don't see people still using arrows. I mean, I guess you could see something like arrows and fireball, something really old school like that. But why run that when you have log now? I'm sure that people are going to be seeing that everywhere. So with Zap being gone, uh, let's think about the decks that will do well. I think the bait decks are going to do well, or we should just call this bait decks. So bait decks will do well. Uh, Inferno decks will do well. I'm not saying like I'm saying Inferno decks would do well, not because like Zap. I mean, people will still carry Zap, but Zap, it's gonna slowly leave the meta if like Goblin barrels aren't going to die to it, and it's not reliable um in these situations anymore. Zap was used before because it was so consistent across the entire board. Now, if someone is running Goblin Barrel on you and you're zapping this Goblin Barrel, it's gonna feel terrible. You're not gonna like it at all. I guess people can still run Zap and Log, but it's still very. So if you start seeing Zap leave the meta, I think you start seeing Inferno decks in the meta, and especially because Elite Barbarians are going to be seen a little bit less compared to now. Inferno decks will be better. If Inferno decks start getting better, then Lava Hound decks and Golem decks start to see a reduction too. And when you don't have decks like this, I mean, we could keep going on, but let's keep going. So Zap is like huge. Zap is huge. Electro Wizard, its hit points is +9, spawn damage -6. The big news here is that Fireball will no longer take out an equivalently level. Really? Cannot die to Fireball. But the spawn damage reduction is for consistency with the Zap change buff. So I'm assuming that Electro Wizard does not kill a Goblin Barrel, right? It does not kill goblins on spawn. So Zap is, I mean, inbuilt Zap is consistent with spell Zap. I've really liked that the Electro Wizard had a flaw. I really liked that this legendary card that was very unique. It had an inbuilt Zap, which like there's no card that comes with a spell. Well, I guess Rage, right? I was about to say there's no card, but Lumberjack basically comes with a spell, Rage. Electro Wizard comes with a spell, Zap. I guess it's not so unique, but it was unique in that respect that it carried such a popular card spell. But when people play Electro Wizard and everybody ran Fireball, people would Fireball it. And if they didn't have Fireball, Electro Wizard usually got value. I like that it had a weakness. Now the weakness for Electro Wizard is gonna be centered around his like lack of health, sort of like his he's always been like a fragile card that if he stands behind a tank does a lot of damage. He stuns everything. He does insanely well there. But if it's alone, it kind of acts sort of like a, not really a musketeer, but sort of like a musketeer. You know, like you could deal with musketeers with Ice Golem. You can't really deal with Electro Wizards with Ice Spirit or whatever, but I guess you could see the weakness there for Electro Wizard. I don't really agree with this. I don't really see why. The only reason why I could see they would be they would be giving it a health bonus is so that it would be used more. We probably like buffed due to card rates, card usage. I mean, that's my guess. I guess people aren't using it because it feels like a jack of all trades, and with this, it's not going to be a jack of all trades. It lives from Fireball now. It's not even a Fireball bait card anymore, and with the lack of zaps, I don't know. It might be an answer to Inferno Tower. I never usually see Electro Wizard as an answer to Inferno Tower because it never gets far in enough, but it's placed like it's definitely going to be used more. I'll say that right away. Electro Wizard will be used more. In what decks I don't really know. I'm having the feeling from what I'm seeing so far that cycle meta will probably be coming back. We're gonna see more Infernos. We're gonna see less tanks. We're gonna see a lot of log. So we're gonna see a lot of what's that? Small cards. I mean, maybe with like maybe the return of lightning. As far as I can tell, I mean, let's put a reminder here. Return of lightning meta. All right. So the mega minion Wow, another nerf to the Mega Minion. I actually have been feeling like the Mega Minion was balanced. It it was not over oppressive. There are other options to the Mega Minion right now. A lot of people are running Musketeer. Uh, I don't really see why they believe that the Mega Minion needed to be double nerfed. Oh wow, it got double nerfed. So the damage got -4%, and the hit they hit the hit speed again. Um, I, I'm pretty sure they nerfed it almost the same way the last time for the Mega Minion, so it got like double nerfed. Double nerfed on a double nerf. I mean, feel free to correct me. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that the Mega Minion got nerfed like that. Mega Minion is a highly used and very valuable defensive option in need of toning down. Pulling the power from his damage, I don't really think so. I think the Mega Minion had like before. The reason why Mega Minion was so strong before was because one, it was used everywhere because everybody was using cards like Bowler. Bowler came into the meta, and Bowler dominated everybody because there were so many mini P.E.K.K.A, so many guards, so many big giant pushes, and then Mega Minion came in, ate all of the Bowler plays because the Bowler could never trade to a Mega Minion, and on top of that, the Mega Minion occupied this really niche space where it was 3 elixir, was flying, had a lot of health, and did a lot of damage. But after getting nerfed multiple times, plus with the introduction of all these new cards like Electro Wizard, with the new meta shifting toward the Musketeer, with Dark Goblin coming out even, um, Mega Minion is in a great place actually, and is not auto include everywhere. So this really feels like a bad nerf to me. I don't really see who would use the Mega Minion right now. If anything, I'm pretty sure with this reduction, like the Mega Minion has never really been maybe at its like first iteration. It was a tank killer. It was you could drop it on like a giant, and you would expect that the giant will go down like eventually. Mini P.E.K.K.A does this job very well. Feels very good for a mini P.E.K.K.A against a giant. But now I feel like the Mega Minion kind of acts more like a musketeer. You know how you're just sitting there watching the musketeer shoot at this tank forever and it's not dying. Imagine it shooting or hitting like a golem. I feel like it would take forever. So in that respect, Mega Minion is going to be very bad. Uh, with this, I think indirect nerf to Lava Hounds, Mega Minion won't even be will probably still be seen there, but less often. And I guess maybe it might have a place because if the meta is going toward a cycle meta, then I mean I guess like Mega Minion finds a lot of value there. But like I guess I would say overall, bad nerf um will be seen even less than we do nowadays. So let's go into the archers. Hit points. Why are they nerfing the archers? Archers are a top tier support card in the current meta. Not really. I would say minions are definitely the top tier support card in the current meta. Maybe last meta. No, actually, I wouldn't even say maybe. It was last meta where they were a top tier support card, and then Elite Barbs came out, and then you started seeing archers a lot less. So I think they're balancing from like last meta or something. All these like nerfs and buffs feel so weird. We're looking to pull a little bit of power from them. They never really had power. They came into the meta with the with the introduction of Graveyard, and people were scrambling to find answers to Graveyard. Then Elite Barbarians came out. People still use archers, but only really in Graveyard decks. You don't see archers in almost anything else. Uh, Musketeers, even Mega Minion at the moment, and definitely minions outshine archers. We're looking to pull a little bit of power, but also aiming to keep their interactions with Elite Barbarians and Mega Minion the same after. So basically, they just nerfed it to keep them consistent with the 2 cards that they nerfed too. So they nerfed archers. So archers will still die to Mega Minion and Elite Barbarians. Okay, whatever. That's okay. The log. Okay, I was wondering about this. You know whether or not the log would also be nerfed with the zap because they're both so integral to each other. You might not think it, but the log and the zap are the two flex position are the two cards that kind of vie for that flex position of a utility spell in your deck. So if you only nerf one, then the other one sort of gets really large, and then they're stuck with the same problem of like they want people to play these less used cards like arrows. -4%. All right. I There's no way that the log would not be able to kill goblins slash princess. They do that. I think they just break the law. Knockback effect reduced. So it has less damage and knockback effect reduced. The log, from having played it, like I'm not normally a log player, but I have been playing it a little bit in, well, one, the minor deck that I placed on to my channel, and two, in an expo deck. And what I've noticed about the log is that its defensive capabilities strictly to the ground, because it doesn't hit air, right, is like insane. It's insane for how much it gets. So I actually do agree with the fact that its damage and its knockback does need to be reduced. It has too much strength on the ground, but I guess it kind of needs it, sort of, because it doesn't hit air. I mean, I need to read the rest of this. So reducing the log's knockback effect won't change its uniqueness. By the way, I kind of like how with the log they buffed it so hard, right? You remember, I mean, you guys probably don't think about it, but the log used to be a terrible card. And then it got multiple buffs in a row with its damage increase, with its knockback increase, and then its knockback affecting every card in the game. It didn't only affect, like, it used to not knock back giants. It used to not knock back tanks, but now it does knock back tanks. So this is a way for them to kind of go back on that a little bit, reduce that a little bit, but still keep its fundamental strength right there. So this is like a good nerf. This is a good nerf. It's a much needed nerf. It'll still be the only card that can knock back all troops. Yep, there it is. Our aim here is to lower how much control and displacement it brings to the arena. Yes. The slight damage reduction will keep its interaction with archers the same. So archers still live. I'm assuming that if it kills if it brings archers within like a brink of their life, kills princesses, kills gobs. So the log will definitely become even more meta, and will quickly become the most used utility spell. I firmly believe this. I don't think that arrows will ever take this 2 elixir utility card spot. You're gonna be seeing a log a lot. You're gonna be seeing a log a lot. Yeah, yeah. I think this card will become bigger than Zap. Then Zap is like now, maybe. All right. What else is there? So, Ice Golem. Its hit points. Oh, okay. So we're getting a nerf to the Ice Golem. This is much needed too. Ice Golem has been pretty insane lately. HP is -5, and its death damage radius. Oh, that's an interesting nerf. And slow duration. So like right away, I can kind of say, well, they decided to keep the death damage, right? So if you, I like this. This is a skill nerf. This is like, no, this isn't. I'm saying it wrong. This isn't a skill nerf to the card. It actually ups the skill for this card. You have to play it like with precision now. Why I say that is because the death damage radius and the slow duration is reduced, but the damage is still there. So if you're playing this card like you used to, as in just putting it kind of anywhere and then having the same effect, that's not going to happen anymore. And then its health percent 5. I guess like that'll throw a little people off with like its ability to tank a little bit longer now. But it stays kind of consistent if you think about it with the cards. So Ice Golem has always been like the rise of Ice Golem came from two things. One, the card was overtuned when it came out, but a lot of people didn't realize it. Overtuned because it's a two elixir card that tanked like everything and brought into prominence a whole bunch of decks that uh, like even like Hog Rider, let's say Expo does very well with it. We saw the dominance of Expo with Ice Golem, but then Ice Golem became even more important with the rise of Elite Barbarians. If you didn't have Ice Golem in your deck, there you like better have a real response to Elite Barbarians that is not just Skarmy. So Ice Golem is getting a correlation nerf to the Elite Barbarians, uh, and it kind of keeps his identity still there. So I like this too. This is a good nerf to the Ice Golem in in line with all of the other things that they've been doing so far. Ice Golem is a top tier defensive option. Is currently offers too much control and value for 2 elixir. Yes. However, we like the Nietzsche fills as a 2 elixir tank, so we're tackling this with a hit point and control reduction. Yeah. So basically, nowadays, if you want to be playing Ice Golem, he's not going to be an auto include anymore, but he's still going to be higher than normal card. I'd probably put him at A tier nowadays. If I were to, rank him on a tier list from S, A, B, whatever, I put him at A. If your deck needs this card, he can fill that card, but it's no longer auto include like this meta right now. Only very few decks do not use Ice Golem. Decks like Mirror Furnace, Lava Hound. Is there anything else? I don't know. Nothing else is really coming to my head, but like very few cards, right? Ice Golem is pretty damn integral to this meta. So if they want to shift the meta, you shift Ice Golem, you shift Elite Barbarians. Ice Spirit damage. Ice Spirit damage is damage minus 10%. I'm already kind of sad because I don't see a nerf to Graveyard at all, and I see a buffed Wizard. But so the damage of Ice Spirit is minus 10%. I don't really see why this is happening. Ice Spirit has been slowly. I mean, it's still one of the great cycle cards. There's two cycle 1 elixir cards right now. There's Ice Spirit and there's Skeletons. You nerf. This is kind of the same with the duality of like Zap and Log. You take away Zap, you make Log a lot stronger. You take away Ice Spirit, you kind of make Skeleton stronger. Currently, a lone Ice Spirit can bring an entire minion horde to within 1 hit from a crown tower. Yes, that's a bit too much for positive looks trade for our taste. One thing I'm wondering, okay, maybe this isn't that big, where like people would just drop Ice Spirit. Uh, so I'm assuming that if Ice Spirits bring minion hordes within 2 hits of a crown tower, that zaps do not take like Ice Spirit Zap no longer takes out a minion horde. What I can also kind of guess from that is that I think most interactions stay the same. I think Ice Spirit, like what if a Musketeer walks up to the bridge, you drop an Ice Spirit without Musketeer. If it's at full health, only gets 1 hit on the tower. I'm hoping that stays the same. If that does not stay the same, Ice Spirit will fall out of the meta. Uh, will probably fall out the meta. I will probably bet money on that. But if most of its other interactions, maybe besides this minion horde one, it'll probably still stay like a good card. Probably still stay like A B tier for Ice Spirit. And now we get to the Wizard. Oh my god. Oh my god, another so range plus 0.5. The Wizard's use rate is relatively low overall. It is low overall because it's a 5 elixir card that is fast. I believe it's either medium or fast. Gets interrupted too easily, and there are better options. So it's an obsolete card. Although it's been getting buff after buff after buff, similar to the bomber, which is also not seen at all. A bit more range, which is kind of insane. I actually I need to see the range of the wizard right now. We have to keep in mind that the musketeer's range is 6. Dark Goblin's range is 6.5. It's okay. It one for one. Its speed is medium. Here, I'm gonna bring this into the screen so we can see right here. So its speed is medium. It's total. I guess it's fine. I thought it felt fast, but it's not fast. It's medium, and its range is 5. So its range becomes 5.5 after this buff. So it Musketeer will still have a 0.5 range on it. The wizard's use rate is relatively low. A bit more range to make him a more compelling choice when stacked up against other range support. The question is, does this buff him into the meta? Does the fact that his 5 elixir costs still break him despite his multiple buffs, and now he has a range buff? I know he has a interaction, like they cleaned up his like targeting. His targeting is a lot more clean. He might have gotten a radius damage buff. I'm not sure about that. Would the wizard be seen? He has AoE, but does this game do you need AoE? Probably not. I still don't think the wizard would. I still don't think that the wizard will be used. People will try and make the wizard used. I don't know. He might be good in cycle decks. He might be good in wizard. I mean, in hog rider decks as a way for defense. But like, I don't know. Overall, like I'm gonna go with the verdict that the wizard probably is still bad. Okay, so notable things still not addressed, right? So the things that are still not addressed, the biggest elephant in the room is definitely graveyard. I talked about this on stream multiple times, but the graveyard is unhealthy for the game. It is the only card that holds RNG in the game. If you cast like, let's put this in tournament standard, right? Level 9 tower against a level 1 graveyard. Cast graveyard on a tower 10 different times and you will get 10 different results. I challenge you in the comments to tell me of another card that does that. If I send Fireball 10 times to a tower, that tower will always be at this amount of health, right? Why is that bad? Well, no competitive game that takes itself seriously has RNG in the game. There are instances of some RNG, even in like League of Legends. Crit is not even RNG. Crit is like I've been told is a logarithmic algorithm. You could say like, oh, but the RNG of the dragons. Well, the thing about that is that when a team goes into the game, they get to see what dragons spawn and then they go around, they get to play around that. You don't really get to play around graveyard RNG because you don't know where the hell it will spawn. So this card, I don't know how they will balance it. I don't know how you can balance a fundamentally broken card without either nerfing it into oblivion or completely removing it from the game. So I can see them having trouble with this. I don't know if they actually realize that this card is broken or that they have real plans for it. But if you think that I'm the only one saying that this card needs to be changed, well, one, if I ask most of the competitive community, they would say it's broken. They will.
Accidentally.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. More wins.
I was watching a WizRaw stream, and I guess WizRaw just hosted Rams, but sorry about that. What was it? Graveyard RNG. Yeah, you asked all of them. Orange Juice in his latest video, in one of his videos, he addresses Graveyard also, and has multiple examples of Graveyard being a completely busted card. It's dominating the meta right now, and it's also, for lack of a better word, restricting deck building by a ton. You always need counters to this card, and even if you do counter it perfectly, there is always margin for error because it is an RNG card. So graveyard, one, top of the list, is not addressed. Two, I feel like poison, as I've said before, is still unfinished. This card does not have an identity. They say that they wanted to keep poison's identity unique, right? There is nothing unique about the graveyard right now. It does maybe 10% more damage than fireball, but almost no one will carry it for graveyard. Uh let's see. Is there anything else? I guess Elixir Collectors is in a healthy place. I'm not really going to complain about the Elixir Collector. Elixir Collector is being used as a response to tank decks right now, since it is a tank meta, and as an answer to Graveyard, because Graveyard must fireball counters or they fireball a collector or something. Um, I'm sort of happy that they're not just out of the blue buffing a new card like Dark Goblin. They're letting players figure out Dark Goblin. People are actually figuring out Dark Goblin. And let's see. Furnace could have maybe been looked at a little bit. I feel like Furnace's health is a little bit too high. Just a little bit though. Like if you really change the health on the Furnace, or you tackle it in a different sense, I think you kind of break Furnace. But right now, I think this card is a little bit too strong right now. Maybe they're thinking that the Dark Goblin is like the answer to Furnace, but it's kind of not. I don't know. It depends on the opponent that you're playing. Is there anything else? No, actually, I think that's about it. So to like recap, if we were to go back through my notes, by the way, I like writing out my thoughts when it comes to things like this, so we can just go back on it and watch it again, or read through it again. So E-Barbs, their speed stays, so they're still an aggressive card. You still have to be prepared for E-Barbs. That's fine. Its insane defensive capabilities got nerfed. And in retrospect, I mean, in the same vein, their offensive capabilities got nerfed. So this card becomes an overall easier to handle card, but still has an identity. Good. I like the E-Barb nerf. Zap, I don't really see why they did it. Maybe because they want to see more goblins in play, or because Zap was being used a lot. They've been picking on Zap a ton. But basically, I think that they wanted Zap out of the meta so that people could start looking at cards like Arrows. Arrows is not a greatly designed card, and there are still better options out there, aka the Log, aka Poison, Fireball. Even it's probably better than Arrows. Um, I don't really see it being big now. Bait decks will do well, although it still is answerable. You're going to be seeing a lot less zaps because they don't kill goblin barrels. So I predict it's kind of easy to predict the rise of Inferno decks. With Inferno in play, you can also assume that tanks will probably be leaving the meta. Majority tanks will probably be leaving the meta, and the decks will go back to cycling. Decks that do cycle very well are things like Hog Rider, Miner, Elixir Collector decks. Those are the ones I kind of see coming. Graveyard will have a harder time of it in general, but it will still see a lot of play. Uh, Hog Rider, if Hog Rider is meeting a lot of Inferno decks and they're not carrying, the reason why I think Lightning will probably come back is because cards like Musketeer, Electro Wizard that do not die to Fireball, and with the rise of Inferno, I think Lightning will come back. Like Hog, Lightning, Log will probably be back. Lightning is definitely gonna be a great response to cards like Musketeer, Electro Wizard. I'm sorry. getting caught up all in my head right now. Uh, and if we see Enlightening come back into the meta, maybe even tanks will come back. I don't know. It's gonna be really cyclical. It's gonna be really cyclical. Mega Minion, it's a bad nerf. I don't think Mega Minion needed the nerf at all. I think that the Mega Minion has already been outshone by a lot of decks lately, a lot of cards, specifically cards like Minions and Musketeer, which we've been seeing a lot of people favor over cards like Archers and Mega Minion. Uh, and it will be seen even less. It's definitely not great for tanks. It will still be fine for cycle cards, so you might see that in the cycle meta a little bit. Archers will still die to Mega Minion Elite Barbs. Uh, Archers were also outshone eventually. They were great in last meta when everybody was running Graveyard and people didn't know how good minions were quite then. And when Archers did not have Elite Barbarians preying on them. But now that Elite Barbarians do exist, Archers have been seeing a lot less play. They were nerfed to be consistent uh with Elite Barbarians now. There's a lot of symbiotic relationships there. I mean, we're gonna get to that when we talk about Ice Golem and Elite Barbarians and Archers. So the log becomes even more meta. Will quickly become the most used utility spell. I do like the nerfs to log, like we said before, because it was much needed. When it comes to ground defense, log was insane for its value. It knocked cards back so hard and did so much damage to it. So I like the damage nerf there. They're gonna be like really small interactions that kind of change. Like maybe you can't kill this musketeer with log anymore that you were before, but that's pretty small. You have to get used to that. There's gonna be a ton of log everywhere. Ice Golem, great nerf also. HP -5, definitely needed. When it came out, it was overpowering, and then especially with its death damage. So it's Ice Golem overall becomes a more skillful card, a more precision card, because now the death damage radius and the slow gets reduced, but the death damage stays there. So most interactions revolving around its death damage stays the same. So I like that. I like that the card becomes more skillful. I think, the more skill that you add into the game, the more depth you find to the game, the more that players can sort of discover for themselves and improve themselves by. Ice Spirit damage -10. Uh, Overall, like I don't really know why they did this. Maybe because it just got really good value, but like if you think about it, yeah, the Ice Spirit could maybe one shot minion hordes, right? But could you not use skeletons to pull an entire minion horde to the other side of the map? It's the same thing, right? Ice Spirit and skeletons are the only one elixir cycle card in the game. You nerf one, you buff the other. There's probably gonna be a lot of skeletons, but this really depends on how big the damage nerf is. If the death damage, I mean, if the damage nerf doesn't affect many of the other interactions with Ice Spirit, I think Ice Spirit still stays the same, and I guess that's fine. Probably it's just a little bit worse against Minion Horde, whatever. So the Wizard, this is the one that kind of irks me a lot more. There are definitely a lot more cards to be looked at. Why the Wizard is such a priority, why Bomber is such a priority, why Giant Skeleton is such a priority, I will never know. It gets a plus a 0.5 rage increase. It still does not have the same range as a Musketeer. Else, if it does have that, it becomes completely meta. But 1.5 it's gonna see play. I think it's gonna see play, but it's probably still gonna be bad. It'll probably go to B tier. I would say B, maybe A tier, depending on how the meta shakes up. Because Wizard is great against cycle cards, right? And if the meta starts to go towards cycle, maybe the Wizard gets a lot of value. I kind of doubt it, though. Kind of doubt it. Okay, so and the last part of this is the notable things still not addressed. Graveyard. yeah, the RNG factor, the fact that it restricts deck building in the meta, the fact that we saw it dominate ladder. It is the only legendary where if you take it to level 3, you can play it on max ladder. There is no other legendary that can do that. In comparison, if you bring a level 3 log to max ladder and someone plays a level 5 princess, you cannot log that princess. You cannot play that log. If you bring a level 3 miner to a level 13 tower, you will never win the game because the miner does so little chip damage. You bring a level 3 ice wizard, it can be fireballed out. I'm pretty sure a level 3 ice wizard can be fireballed out by a level 11 fireball. Uh, I don't know if I'm wrong on that, you can correct me there. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that if you have a level 3 graveyard, you can run it in ladder and be top 200. That's pretty damn insane because the damage that graveyard does changes with every single match. It is the most inconsistent card in the game. It is the only card that relies on a random number generator because the graveyard spawns skeletons anywhere in the arena, anywhere within your circle radius. So I guess you could say like proposed nerfs would be radius nerf. Um, make the RNG disappear by having skeletons appear in a certain pattern. Maybe I don't know. I just don't think that this card is healthy for the game at all and should be looked at. Uh, and my claims are corroborated by others in the community who have played this game a ton, and I am not alone in this. So also, and the last thing is poison. I still feel like poison is an unfinished card. It is not unique. It has no identity, almost no identity. I guess the only I guess the only way you would say poison has identity. Oh, it stays on the map and stops units from. I mean, it deals damage over time, but there's no slow there. There's no reduction in anything. Poison does not feel like poison, and it just feels like a worse fireball. Which is why everybody's running fireball over poison. And people who are running poison right now can only run it in very certain decks that have very big weaknesses, anyways. Let's say minor furnace poison, right? Has an almost unwinnable matchup against Golem. If the Golem player plays very well, gets off one Golem push, poison doesn't do anything. So I would say poison still needs a buff. Needs something like just one buff. Whether it's a slow, like you add a slow to poison, right? So units stay within the poison, take the full brunt of it. Totally fine. Or it can have the buff of what did it used to do before? Reducing, opponents reducing their attack speed or something. So you can do damage that way, or you can fight within your poison. But now, like poison just kind of stays on the map and does sort of nothing. Musketeers walk out of it. It is not reliable against 3 musketeers. The card is not reliable unless you have something to ground troops like miner. So yeah. Okay. So I think we went through all of these balance changes. I'll keep this here. I'm hoping that the other two stuff gets addressed. I do think the meta will change a lot. We're gonna be seeing a lot of different stuff here. We're probably gonna see the death of things like Golem, maybe Lava Loon. Hopefully, I say hopefully. I really hate that style of play, but yeah. So if you guys like this, if you guys enjoy this, leave a comment below, and yeah, subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope I didn't bore you like to death. All right, thank you.